Okay, I was a drug addict. I had a cocaine addiction, not once, but twice. I'm not proud of it, but I'm proud of the fact that I survived it, that I got through it, and I'm a better person because of it.
Welcome to the podcast The Power of MACHEN, your podcast for inspiration and motivation. My name is Roman Newman and I take you with me into my conversations with exciting personalities to find out what drives them to go for their dreams and how do they unlock their potential. My goal is to learn from them and share their learnings with you. If you feel it's time for change and personal growth, and you want to recharge and nourish yourself, then listen up, I got something for you. Check out our coaching retreat for inner strength and personal growth. For Growth is a well-crafted retreat created to guide you in your inner transformational journey that helps you to reach clearer visions and levels of growth. We help you through different workshops and individual coachings to structure your thoughts, to calm your mind, to strengthen your body, and provide organic, healthy food to lift your spirits. Check out our webpage, forgrowth.com, and get in touch with us. We are looking forward to welcome you. In our moving and radically open conversation, Ray Frigault shares his moving life story. He speaks about his fears and darkest moments in life, including drug abuse, alcoholism, failure, and his strokes of fate. But he also shares how he turned his life around and provides impulses and hacks on how to break bad habits, including addiction, about his discovery from nagging self-doubt to living a rich and fulfilling life, how to rediscover your youth and take the fear out of change. What do you do when you realize that your life is passing by? Watch or take actions? As Ray says, it's never too late to make changes. And now, let's get started and enjoy the episode with Ray.
Thank you very much for being a guest in the podcast. I'm really looking forward to talk with you about your book. It's about time. We will get to that a little bit later. And first of all, warm welcome and thanks for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Ron. I feel honored, actually. Yes.
That's fine. It's cool. Well, as I said, like you're an author, you're an interesting personality. You have gone through really interesting experiences in your life, and you wrote a book about it. It's called "It's About Time." And in your book, you speak about we all have a second chance in life. What do you mean with that?
Well, when you look back on your life and you reach a point where you think you can't go any further, and you wish you could do it over again. Okay, everybody, I think, reaches that point sometime in their life where, geez, I wish I could make some changes in my life, but you think you're too old, or you've dug yourself in a hole too deep that you can't get out of. Well, there's always more time for you, and that's what you have to realize. That's what my book was about. That I called it "It's About Time" because that's what it is about. Some people, when they reach a certain age in their life, they feel they've peaked out, and that's how I felt when I was 40. And I reached a point where it was actually the lowest point in my life, and I really thought I had nothing left to live for. And then I realized something, and it changed my life, and I grew from there. So that's what I write about. I wrote about something that you can do in your life that will make it that much better. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you said like there was a certain point in your life when you turned 40.
Yes.
Is there like a particular situation when you had that thought coming up, like I have to change something, or like how did it happen?
Well, it just so happened that it was on my 40th birthday. Mm-hmm. Since that time, I've realized that I look at 40 as I call it the Equinox of Life.
Okay.
That's what I call it. I think it's a time when people should take a step back and look at their life and see where they're at, and is there anything in their life that they'd like to change. And they've got lots of time to do it, because the average age right now is around 80 that we can live to. Some live to 90, some to 100, some live to 40 or 50. But the average lifespan right now is around 80 years old. So that's what I based my premise on, that 40 is halfway there. So 40 being the equinox, if you want to make any changes, you can live your whole life over again. And that's what I read about. That's that turning point. So it just so happened that on my 40th birthday, it once again was the lowest point in my life. I had lost everything. I had lost my business, lost my job, lost my family. I lost my house, my car. I was at a very, very low point in my life. I was a drunk. And yes, I was drunk that night on my birthday, watching a TV show. And this particular TV show just happened to be someone celebrating their 80th birthday. I looked at this woman that was celebrating her 80th birthday. She had locked herself in the bathroom with her granddaughter, and she was complaining about her kids. They were giving her a birthday party, but she didn't want any part of it because she was fed up with them telling her what to do, telling her she's too old to do this, too old to do that. And she was there drinking and smoking cigarettes, talking to her granddaughter, telling her all this. And I'm watching this woman, this 80-year-old woman, and I'm thinking, wow, she's still got a lot of life left in her. And something dawned on me. I realized that she had lived 2 of my lifetimes. So it just made sense to me that I could start over tomorrow and start my whole life over as a baby, just like a newborn. So when you say born again, usually you think of it as in a religious connotation, but this had nothing to do with religion. This was just me realizing that I could live my whole life over again. So I started living my whole life over again. And it took me a while to realize what I had to do it. It wasn't until years later, looking back, that I realized the steps that I had to go through to grow up, to realize my second life. And I wrote about that. That's why it's called It's About Time. Rediscover your youth and take the fear out of change. Because life is full of changes. You can't be afraid of them. You have to embrace them.
Take me a little bit back to that situation on your 40th birthday. I mean, many people feel in their life there is a need for change. Many people have the idea, I want to do this, I want to go for that dream, I have that goal, I want to have a certain career, whatever, you name it. But only if you really go for it. Where did you find the energy and the drive to make that step to change on that particular day?
So where did I find the energy? Well, that kind of grew, okay? It took me a while to make the break. It started with a small idea to think of myself as a baby. Now, I just said, I'm starting my life over tomorrow. And I went about making the changes. As I was making the changes, I started to grow as a person. Now what happened was I left the woman that I was living with at the time. We were both drunks. We were not good for each other. The way I left wasn't the greatest way. I had to more or less run away in the middle of the night. That's just the way it happened. But I actually went back and lived with my mom. And as I lived with my mom, I was there doing nothing basically, except for existing. But I was looking through pictures. And it was as I was going through pictures at my mom's when I saw a picture of me as a baby, when I truly realized how young I was. I looked at that picture of a baby and I said, wow, that's how young I am right now. And that gave me the energy, the jolt to grow. And I started doing little odd jobs around the park where my mother lived. And as I started doing that, and I was making money, and I started growing. Here I am, I had nothing, and all of a sudden I've got a drawer full of cash. I would paint fences, clean trailers, whatever odd jobs that I could find. And it was an amazing experience. I'm growing here, but there was still a part of me that was living in the past. It takes a long time to be able to let go of that past and really embrace the future. You have to think of yourself as a baby. A baby needs help. It's okay for a baby to ask for help because they can't do anything. All they do is exist. And that's what I was doing. That was hard for me to do. But when you do it with a purpose, it really works. You grow inside. I don't know if that answers where you're going from that.
Yes and no.
Yes.
The question is a little bit more like, you mentioned like you have the past, like a backpack you carry with you.
Right.
And like when I read your book and I went through that part you wrote about, it's like, how do you get rid of that backpack? You know, that all the experience you made, be it good experiences or bad experiences, how do you get rid of it to start all over again? Because we are all, I mean, you don't just erase your mindset, you know, I mean, it's still there. And how did you manage to do that? I mean, how to get rid of that backpack and that experiences you had there?
Time.
Time.
That's all it takes, because it doesn't happen overnight. All those problems, they're still there. Okay, you can't ignore them. You kind of ignore them. You just take the importance away. Okay, you put the importance on other things, yourself, your family, and those are the important things. And you grow within. It's not something that happens overnight. A child just doesn't come out of the womb and start walking and going to school and talking. They grow slowly. And that's what the second life is all about. It's not just about just open the door and walk in. It's something that you have to build again. It's not that your past is totally ignored. Your past is what brought you today. You can't negate that. That is what it is. It's an acceptance. It's an acceptance of what brought you here. Okay, I was a drug addict. I had a cocaine addiction, not once, but twice. I'm not proud of it, but I'm proud of the fact that I survived it, that I got through it, and I'm a better person because of it. It's the past. You have to live with it, and that growth process from being a baby and growing up, you're starting a new life, but you still got the past back there. You just don't let it affect your new life. That's more or less what I had to do. It was difficult because when I started my life over again, I went back and lived with my mother. I had my friends that I worked at General Motors for years with, and I left General Motors to go find my fortune and start my own business. My business failed. I felt like a terrible failure. I ended up back in a factory working for minimum wage, and I suffered tremendous anxiety. It was terrible. And this is before my change. This is all leading up to my 40th birthday. That was part of my downward spiral. But I knew what it was like to live through that anxiety. It was bad. It was bad. I survived that part of it. I had a job. That was good enough, but it wasn't what I needed to fulfill myself. So I had to learn to live with all these failures in my life, if you want to call it that. Nobody wants to admit that they're a failure. So when I came back to my new life, everything was fine in my little bubble, living with my mother and working for all the neighbors who loved me. I was great. I was the handyman. I was the cleanup guy. But I didn't go back to see any of my friends for quite a while. It was probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 months before I actually got contact with some of my old friends, because they were all successful. They all were living mortgage free. They had Harleys, they had boats and new trucks and cars. I had an old beat up station wagon that someone had given me. That's what I was driving, and I had to kind of hold my head up high when I went back to see them. And it was interesting. It was interesting. It wasn't like what I expected at all. They didn't care. They didn't judge me. They didn't put me down. It was me. I was the one that was being hard on myself. But they welcomed me. It was like I never left. It took me a while to be able to do that.
Okay, so it was just in your head that you thought you're maybe a loser or not as successful as your friends are.
That's right.
And okay, so that actually kept you down from like moving on, because your own thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sure. I was my own worst enemy.
Okay.
But starting over again, once again, it was a growth process. It wasn't something that happened overnight. It was something that you had to work on and stay the course. Keep growing. And that's what I was trying to do. Just grow. You're a baby. And then you're a 1-year-old. Then you're a 2-year-old. Look at where you're at 2 years old. You're barely walking. You're just starting to walk. You're not talking yet. Maybe a little bit. So that reference to the child, to starting over as a baby, that helped me to get through that stage. Because that was the toughest stage.
I see. Yeah, when I read the book, I really liked the idea of like starting over and, you know, putting yourself again like in the childhood stage. Because as children, we are more or less fearless. We are open to new stuff. We are open to try new things. We deal with like doubts, maybe much more positive. You know, like if you tell a 1-year-old after it fell down, trying to walk, like oh, maybe walking is nothing for you, it would work. You know, they get up again, of course.
That's
and
right.
Continue walking and practice, fall down again, get up again, and you know, keep on going. And a little bit, I have the feeling, as older as we get, as more we forget about trying stuff and keep on going and getting up and not quitting so fast. You know, like keep on growing. On that, let's say, second chance, and on that time you developed on yourself, did you try any, let's say, like tricks to like keep that in mind, or like did you had any like let's say pep talk or any impulses from the outside which helped you to keep on that track?
Well, when I was going through it at the beginning, I'm a very visual person. I set goals, small goals. And usually it went along with a picture or a writing. I had words posted up, words of wisdom. I collect words of wisdom. You know, that's this too shall pass is the one that gets me through a lot. And that's just an example. But I would have these posted on my wall. I had a picture of a truck towing a trailer up through the mountains. That was I wanted that. That was something that I shot for. It took me years to get there. I'm there now. You know, those pictures stayed in my mind, and it kept me motivated. Just like the pictures of me as a child, it kept me motivated. That showed me how young I was. You've still got lots of growing up to do. Don't worry. Don't worry. So what? Your car is junky. So what? You don't have your own house yet. Those things will come. You know, at that point in time, 40 years old, I had sold 4 houses by that time. You know, and here I was, I had nothing. It's very, very difficult. But that thinking myself as a baby and not putting any great expectations on myself, just grow. I always wanted to be growing, okay? Money is not a big thing for me. So never was.
What does growing mean for you, if money is not that what you mean of growing?
Well, that is part of it. You need money to grow. That's the way our society is structured. If you want to grow, you need money. And if money's not important to you, how do you make it important? You get a good job, okay? You get a well-paying job, or else you set yourself up as a business. You have to have an income to live. To me, growing, that's part of it, as much as I hate to say it, but you need money to grow in this society. They've made it that way. And you have to play that game. You know, you have to have money too. So growing, it's not just financial, but it's growing in your mind, growing as a person, growing, what's the word I'm trying to find? Just your whole persona, okay? You want to grow to be a responsible adult. And at that point in time, I wasn't, because I wasn't self-sufficient. I'm living with my mother. But little steps. This too shall pass, okay? And that really keeps me going. Yeah.
What do you mean with that sentence?
This too shall pass. That's a sense that my mother gave to me. And, well, when she told it to me, she told me it was Napoleon's ring. Now, she said Napoleon had a ring, And on that ring, it said, "This too shall pass." And whenever things were really bad for him, if he was losing a battle or he's lost a lot of men that day, he would look at this ring and "This too shall pass." And that would give him strength to keep going. But more importantly was if he just conquered a city and he's got all these riches and they're pillaging and everything's going really well for him, he'll look at that ring and say, "This too shall pass." So he wouldn't get too wrapped up in where he was. That's another thing about time. Everything passes. Everything. Doesn't matter how bad it is or how good it is, it's not going to stay that way. And when you realize that, well, you can roll with it a lot easier. So that saying helped me a lot. She told me it was Napoleon's ring. Now, the way she told me, it would always stay with me because she was sitting with my dad one day and they were around the pool. They felt successful. Kids were growing. They were planning their first trip to Europe. Everything was good. Their house was paid for. And as they're sitting there on that sunny day, my mother started crying. And my dad says, "What is wrong?" And she said, "Everything's too good. It's just not going to stay this way." He says, "What do you mean? It's great. You know, our life is good." She goes, "Well," she says, "I just had this feeling something is good." He had cancer at that time. She didn't know. He didn't know. He died 6 months later. And that, of course, would always stick with me. That story with "This too shall pass." Years later, I wanted to find out more about Napoleon's ring. So I went online and looking everywhere for Napoleon's ring. I couldn't find anything. I look up Napoleon. They didn't talk anything about his ring. I called a librarian. I'm doing research. She said, "I don't know anything about Napoleon's ring." It was quite a few years later when I found out it was King Solomon's ring. She was close. But the story is out there. And it was King Solomon that sent out one of his minions to find him this magical ring. That if a man was feeling good, it would bring him down. And if he was feeling bad, it would bring him up. And this is the ring that he found for King Solomon.
Okay, and that's like a principle you integrate in your life, that when things are going well, and
Yes.
you know everything seems to be being really really good, it's only temporary.
That's right.
And also when it goes the other way, like when things are not going so well and life maybe puts something on you, like something difficult, and it's only just temporary.
Everything is temporary. Life's like a pendulum. Sometimes the downswing can be very difficult. But unless you're 6 feet under, unless you're buried in the ground, you're going to come up again. It will happen.
It's easy to say, actually. Like when life is good, things are like in the flow. Everything works out.
Yeah.
Like it just seems like success is coming to you, maybe, or like things are just good. And that's maybe the easy part when the pendulum goes in one direction.
Yeah.
But how about when the pendulum goes on the other side, and like maybe bad things keep happening to oneself and things still are not going really well? How do you keep the positive mindset up then? I mean,
it's tough. I mean, it's tough because life can get really bad. It can get really bad. And I look at people that are living out of the parts of the world that will struggle their whole life. It can be a struggle. But somewhere in there, they can still find some form of happiness, I believe. It's unfortunate that some people have to live in poverty, and I look at those people and I think, where do they find the good? And it's hard, but you will see smiles and you will see laughter, and usually it's with family and friends. And I think that's more important than all the money in the world, are the people around you, because it's that community, it's that communion with people that will keep you alive and keep you going. Sometimes that's all we have. But yeah, time moves, and we move with it. And what happens in that time, we don't know. We don't know how, but we do have control over a lot of things.
What do we have control over?
Well, we have control over, what do we have control over? We have control over what we do for a living. We have control over what we're going to eat today, what we're going to eat tomorrow, if we eat at all. We have control over who our friends are, who we call friends. What else do we have control of? We have control of a lot in our life. Some things we don't have control over. We don't have control over a disease that will take over you. We don't have control over war or famine. We can't control things like that. Mm-hmm. But in our society, in North America and Europe, mm-hmm. you know, we do have we have more control than other people in other parts of the world.
So the challenge is actually understanding first what do we have influence in, or what we can control, mm-hmm. and try to manage it, and also understanding where we don't have any control of it, you know, because like if we understand where we have no influence it, then we can't even like have an impact, you know, or we have to accept it.
We have to accept it.
We have to accept it. That's the difficult part, you know. I mean, accept.
It's an important part though.
Yeah.
Yes, because if you don't accept, you spend your whole life struggling. Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm in a situation where I have very limited income, we talked about money, how important money is. Okay, so I have a very limited income. I can just have enough to live on, to eat, and then you have to make the decision that that's all I'm going to do. And you don't be sad because you can't go out or you can't do what you were able to do years ago. You accept where you are. So acceptance is a large part of it. Acceptance of the things you cannot change. That's another word of wisdom that goes way back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alcoholics Anonymous use it. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Yeah, the courage to change the things I can. And most important, the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, that's a difficult part, no? Like, how do you decide, like, or who decides what is, you know, what can you change or what you can't change, you know?
That's right. Well, you know when you can't change. There are certain things you cannot change. You get cancer, you can fight it. You can go and you can get all the medical attention you can need. But if it's got the best of you, you can't do anything about it. Your time has come. Mm-hmm. And you accept it. It's something that you cannot change. And sometimes your position in life, you think you can't change it. But if you dig deep into yourself or look further beyond your horizons, maybe you can change it.
So what did you do to find the spots which you could change?
That was a step-by-step process. Okay? I think the biggest thing that happened in my second life that gave me the boost that I needed was my job. Mm-hmm. I got a career that I really, really enjoyed, and I just fell into it. I just happened to be around when they were opening a casino. I went and took a course, learned how to deal cards. I had never been in a casino before. I'm not a gambler, no interest in gambling whatsoever. But the idea of working in a casino sounded like fun, so I figured I'd try it. And it turned out to be one of the best things I did in my second life. It was to have that career. That was a big change for me. That gave me stability. It gave me growth. Even without thinking about it. It just happened. That was the big change for me. That was the big changing point. Another big change was my alcohol and drug abuse. Mm-hmm. I controlled that. I didn't quit drinking altogether, but I made a deal with my mother. I would only drink on weekends. And even when the weekend came around, I still didn't really feel like drinking that much. So alcohol was not a big player in my life, and the drugs were non-existent. I was no drugs and very little alcohol. Mm-hmm. So those were things that I could change that changed my whole mindset, changed me physically. I was exercising again, and to me, that's another big part of my change was the exercise, taking care of my body, caring about what went into my body. And I've always, even to this day, I still have a daily exercise that I do. Even if it's just a few stretches, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. Have to. Yeah.
Speaking of the addiction, you mentioned like earlier with the drug or alcohol abuse. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a big topic, and that is something. Let's say it's it's not easy to get rid of, and it has a major impact in many lives, and mostly not positive or mostly negative, like people don't get things done they need to get done, they struggle with depression, they look for answers with whatever abuse, drug or alcohol. You write about it in your book as well. How did you do it? I mean, like how did you decide to go for that fight, and also how to win it? I mean, you are now sober since many years, and you keep keep working on that, and you stay like that. But many people, they don't make it. Like how did you make it?
Well, the drugs and the alcohol, like I was twice addicted to cocaine, and the second time ended up in the downward spiral that brought me to the point of my 40th birthday. At that point, I was just drinking because that's all I could afford. I couldn't afford cocaine anymore, so it was alcohol. And once again, when I went back to my mom, I got control of the alcohol, where I was only drinking on weekends, and I was like that for quite a while. But then I got in the casino, and my job started at noon, and I worked till 8 o'clock. What do you do at 8 o'clock when you get off work? You go to the bar, or you go home and you have a drink. And that's how it started. And then it became a daily thing. I'm a very habitual person. Every night I'd come home and I'd have a drink or two. And every night I'd come home and have a drink or two. And then maybe I'd smoke a joint along with that, and that became my lifestyle. And it slowly grew. It didn't happen overnight, but I slowly got back into the habit of drinking every day, made my own wine, and I wasn't hurting anybody. I'd have a few drinks, sit on the back porch and play the guitar. Who was I hurting? Nobody. I was getting up in the morning and I was going to work every day, and life was good. But then something happened, and this is quite a few years after my change in life, when I decided to really quit drinking. It was an accident. My daughter was going through a difficult time. Her husband was away for a while, and she was at home with 2 very young children. She was really suffering, and I was worried about her. I took some time off work to help her out, and their house was under construction. There was no heat in the house, just a furnace, just a wood stove to heat the whole 2-story farmhouse. So I decided I'm going to help my daughter, and I was off work for about 2 months, and they were forcing me back to work. They said it was time to go back to work, and I wasn't quite ready to go back to work. I still needed some time, and I knew I had a drinking problem, and I said, well, let's address this drinking problem. So I talked to my counselor, and I said, I have a drinking problem, and she said, well, go and see these people down the road. So I went and saw these people, and they're a rehab place that's called Kazan. And I went in there. There's 2 chairs. You're only allowed 2 people they'll take in at a time. So I went in early, an hour early, and I got one of the chairs. They took me in. And I went through their program. And I was sober for about 3 months when I finished the program, and I went back to work, and I felt so much better. Physically, I had lost about 20 pounds. I had really gotten into a good exercise routine. I was walking steady every day, and I just felt so much better that I decided to stay sober a little bit longer. And it was a 1 day at a time type of thing. And before you know it, years passed. 2 years passed. It's coming on 10 years now that I haven't had a drink. And people don't you miss it? And I really don't. It hasn't become important in my life, because I know if I start drinking, it won't happen overnight. It'll be, a glass of wine here, a glass of wine there. Then the next thing you know, it'll be 2 glasses of wine, because it always tastes like more. I like wine. Then that leads to whiskey. Weiser's my whiskey of choice. And that's what happens with me, and I know that it will happen. It won't happen. It might take 2 or 3 years, but within a 2 or 3 year span, I'll be drinking every day. And I can't afford it. I retired early because I quit drinking and smoking. I knew I could afford to do it. So I've been retired now for 5 years, and I still don't drink, still don't smoke cigarettes, and I will continue that way.
I see.
Yeah.
But first, again, it was like realizing it's not good for you, you know. And then the second step is like also asking for help, you know, that you went to
That's
a
right.
counselor and, you know, took action to take your destiny in your own hands.
Yep.
And sometimes also it makes sense not to do it yourself, but get help from the outside.
No,
you know?
it's not something that you can really do with yourself, do on your own. You need support. You need that support from the group, because the group you're with, and the education. The education helped me a lot as well, because I learned what alcohol did to my body, did to my brain, and and I heard a lot of stories.
Yeah.
And that was enough to keep me. But I really think what motivated me the most was when I went back to work and people saw me say, Ray, the heck did you do to yourself? Man, you look 10 years younger. So it wasn't just inside, it showed outside. I was actually physically younger, healthier, because of not having those chemicals in my body.
Okay.
And it was enough to keep me going. Now, it's not going to be that simple for other people, but what happened with that situation was I realized how to quit. A year later, I had been smoking cigarettes since I was 12 years old. And I had tried quitting, I don't know how many times, read the books and went to programs and everything. And I always went back to smoking. And I decided to quit smoking, and it was that easy. I just stopped. And I learned the most important thing was to close the door and keep it closed.
No exceptions.
Don't open for anything, because what's on the other side is going to destroy your life. So you keep that door closed. I used to think about the cigarettes, the pack of cigarettes, as a schoolyard bully.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, the schoolyard bully that's going to come up and take your lunch money. And whereas I would just say, there's no way I'm going to give that bully any more of my money. And that was another mind game that I would play with myself.
You use that metaphor for yourself to motivate yourself.
That's right. That's right.
And also, like with the victory of quitting drinking, then it showed you, it proved to yourself that I'm able to do that. You know? And I can transfer it to other habits to break through those habits, and you transfer it to quitting smoking.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, interesting. Yeah, I also like the part in the book, I think you wrote it something like, there's a difference between passing out and sleeping. Yeah, that's refers to the health, you know, like, because
absolutely, and I think that's what makes you younger. And that's one of the things that I learned. That's the education part. That when you're drinking and you think you're getting a good night's sleep, you're not. You're just passing out, and you're not getting your full REM cycle and waking up refreshed. Yeah, you're waking up and you're going through the process, but you're not getting the full night's sleep. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you function. Yeah, you function. You go through the day. You do your task. More, you know, sometimes better, sometimes worse. But it's not. You're not really like in your energy. You know, not really.
Well, I used to, like I said, I'd come home from work. I'd get home at 8 o'clock, and that was my routine. I'd have my dinner, and usually I'd have wine with dinner, but then that would just continue. You know, 1 or 2 bottles. It would be I could drink 2 bottles in a night myself, and then I would just kind of bounce off the walls as I go down the hall, as I put myself to bed, and up the next morning, 7 o'clock, do my walk and whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was a functioning alcoholic. That's what they would call it.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. You spoke earlier about like putting pictures up on the wall and post-its and wisdom to. Nowadays you could call it a vision board or something like that.
Yeah.
Was that on your vision board as well, of quitting to smoke or quitting to drink? Was that
no?
That developed over time, or
that developed over time. Even when I quit drinking, it wasn't. I didn't say, okay, I've had enough of drinking, I'm going to quit. It was Kazan that pointed out to me that I had a real drinking problem. That pointed out to me what alcohol was doing to me. And that my life could be better without it. I never imagined that I would live my life without alcohol. And it's funny, I I don't think my father was an alcoholic, but he always had the fear that he was. Alcohol was always around in the family. Every party, every get-together, every gathering, there was always beer or drinks, or like at Christmas time, it was always revolved around alcohol. Alcohol was quite prevalent in our family. And my father started this routine that he would actually quit drinking every year, January or February. I can't remember which month, but I'm pretty sure it was February that he would just quit for the whole month. I found out later that it was to prove to himself that he wasn't an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. So he would just not drink for a month and, okay, I'm not an alcoholic, and it's back to it again. That was his way. Mm. Yeah. So, yeah, I never really saw myself as having a drinking problem. I knew I was drinking too much, but I was functioning. I was holding down a job. I was paying my bills. Everything was taken care of. Who cares if I want to get drunk every night? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't something that I said, boy, I got a drinking problem. I have to quit this. It's destroying me. It wasn't destroying me. Mm-hmm. But when I quit, I realized that it was destroying me physically. Mm. My physical part wasn't that important to me. Mm. As long as bills were paid and everybody's happy, then that's okay. Okay. It was by accident that I quit drinking. Truly by accident.
Which turned out to be a positive accident.
Right? Hugely. Yeah, it was life-changing.
I see.
Yeah.
What changed afterwards you quit drinking?
What changed after I quit drinking? I had more money. Mm-hmm. I had lots more money, but physically I felt so much better. I built myself up. I started out walking, then I started running. And at one point, I write about that in the book, where I went in for a physical, and they measure your body fat and everything. And when I went down to get my results, she goes, "You came up as an athlete." I said, "I'm an athlete." You know, how old was I? 59 years old, and now I'm an athlete. I was training. I wanted to go in this running race, and I was training for that. I started running, and I was probably the best shape I had been in 20 years, you know. But yeah.
Have you been into sports before that, or?
I was never that athletic. No, sports were not a thing for me.
So you started the sports when you were 59. That's where you, like your sporting career.
That's my sporting career. I was an athlete at 59 years old.
Wow. Okay. And then you went the first time ever for a run, or like you joined the competition, right?
Yeah, I went into it's a marathon, but I only ran 5 kilometers. But for me, it was huge. Yeah, it was huge to build up to that, to be able to run that and finish it. Yeah, and I set a time limit for myself that I wanted to beat, and I beat my time limit. It was a wonderful experience.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What else changed besides the physical, like, you know, being an athlete already, or like being an athlete, looking younger, having more energy? What else?
What else would matter? I don't know. Well, I regained a good relationship with my daughters. I wasn't always the greatest father, okay? You know, you try to be, but with all the trouble that I went through in the earlier years, it took its toll on my relationship with my daughters. But I didn't realize how much my drinking affected our relationship, because I was not always drunk around them. Like, most times you wouldn't even know that I was drunk. I was a happy-go-lucky drunk, and I handled my alcohol quite well. But I found out later that it bothered my daughters, you know, my drinking, and our relationship grew exponentially after. And I found out that I just fit in better, you know. My life just seemed smoother. It's simpler. I can't put it into words. It's just plain better. Yeah, but like I said, financially and physically, but relationship-wise, it was really life-changing.
I see.
Yeah.
You were mentioning like you weren't a good father always. What do you mean by that?
Well, I was into drugs when I was younger, and I wasn't home a lot. You know, I would be out. I partied a lot. And also, I have a temper. And like I would never abuse my children. I never hit them or anything like that, but I was sharp. You know, I would raise my voice, and my girls were, at one point, they were afraid of me. I didn't want them to be afraid of me. There was nothing, like, I wasn't an abusive father. I don't see myself as being abusive, not physically for sure. Mentally, I don't know, because I had a temper, and sometimes it would get the best of me, and I would yell, raise my voice, that type of thing. And well, that changed a lot when I didn't drink. Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't become a mean drunk when I was drinking, but it affects your whole life. Yeah,
I see.
Yeah,
I mean, you have a big family nowadays, and you have a good relationship with your kids and with your grandchildren.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned like you have 12 grandchildren.
12 grandchildren right now, yeah.
Right now, so a growing family, you know,
Yeah,
like as I understood.
another one on the way.
Understood, yeah, exactly. And you're still in your second life, and you made a lot of changes.
I'm 27.
27 now, yeah. And so that's how you look, actually.
Oh, thank you.
And but I'm also curious. I'm also a father. You know, I also have kids, and like we talked about it earlier as well. Like, what makes it a good father? You know, like how can you be a good father? Is there like a formula you have, like, after having the experience in your first life and now being 27 in your second life with grandchildren and your own children, having, you know, a good relationship? Is there anything you can pass on?
My goodness, that's a tough one. What makes a good father? For me, I think it's just loving and acceptance. Okay, you have to accept who they are, what they want to be, what they want to do. I'm guilty of, they would say I would preach to them. Okay, tell them the right way to do things, or should maybe do things this way, or if they were going through a hard time, I'm going to try to help them. And sometimes they don't want help, they just want to listen. Okay, they just want somebody to listen to their problems. They don't want me to tell them, well, do this and you'll feel better, or do that and you'll feel better. Took me a long time to stop doing that, because that's what I do. I help people, you know. I don't like to see people suffering and going through a hard time, so I'll always reach in and try to help. And I found that less is more when it comes to older children. Now, younger, that's a different story. But I'm talking teenager into adult children. I find less is more. Listen, and don't talk as much. Because me, I found that was my biggest downfall. I don't even know if you'd call it a downfall, but my shortcoming when I was dealing with my daughters is I would always try to put my 2 cents in instead of just listening. Just listen. And you can give your advice after, but just listen. Yeah, that's one thing that I've learned. Yeah, but to be what makes a good father, love is everything. I mean, you have to have that feel, and you have to show your love for them. They have to feel it. You can't just say, I love you. That means nothing. It's your actions that show. When you're there for them. They need you, you're there. Call me up. I moved my daughter 4 times in 1 year when she was in university. 4 times I moved her. That's a good dad. Dad, I have to move again. Okay, I'm coming. Yeah.
I see.
But beyond that, I don't have all the answers. I'm still trying to figure it out.
It's a long life process, you know.
Oh, it certainly is. Oh yeah.
Okay, and we all students, you know. Students of life.
Absolutely.
To learn in different fields.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I like the thought. And again, you're only 27 now.
Only 27. Should we explain what that is all about? Why I'm only 27. Let's touch on that, because your listeners really don't know what we're talking about. When I started my life over again, I developed a formula. The formula is really simple. 40 plus 40 equals 80. Okay, that's really simple. So that means if you're 40 years old, you have another 40 years before you're 80. So You're starting over again. So in your second life, you think of yourself in that way. When you're 42 years old, you're 2. When you're 45, you're only 5 years old. So I'm 27. I'm 67 years old. 27 in my second life. So I'm still doing pretty good. Yeah.
Very well. Yeah. Perfect. Nice. Even in your second life, you went through different challenges. I mean, you already touched a little bit of them, you know, you with the addiction, for example, but also like some setbacks in your relationships you had. Maybe you can tell a little bit about that, and I'm also curious how you went over that.
I don't know if we have enough time for that. Well, I've been married 3 times. I'm in my 3rd marriage right now. My first marriage was right out of high school. I was 19 years old. That's the woman that I have 2 children with. We were together for 13 years, and we struggled quite a bit through our marriage. We were so young when we got married. It was too young. We divorced, and it was about 5 or 6 years after that divorce that I came to my realization, but it was a big downward spiral from there. And we divorced. We both went our separate ways. I lived with a woman for about 7 years, 6, 7 years, and that was just like, that's the woman that I had to get away from because we were so bad for each other. But then when I came back home to Niagara Falls, which is where I grew up, I was working. It was my first job, my first real job in my second life, working in a restaurant and doing deliveries, and I met a waitress, and we just hit it off royally. We got along terrific. 2 years later, we got married, and life was good. We got along great. But then she had some problems. We found out that she was a gambler, and that addiction, like every other addiction, really did a number on our relationship, which after 10 years, I ended up divorcing her. A couple of years later, I ran into my first wife again. She had come back to the area, moved back. She had a daughter, and we started seeing each other. It just happened by accident. I was helping her out, helped her move, helped her with the computer, and one thing led to another. That comfortability that comes with knowing each other so well, that we just kind of slid in together. We started seeing each other, and before long, she was moved in with me, with her daughter. So now I have another daughter, and with my second wife. And we were together probably about 5 years. And that wasn't working out again. It was just all the old stuff coming back. We just were not compatible. Had to end it. So we ended that. Now, years go by. 6, 7 years. I lived on my own. I decided, that's it. I want to be on my own. I'm no good in a relationship. I don't want to upset anybody. I just want to live my life and not upset anybody. So that's the life I chose. And that's when I decided to retire early. And I sold my house, sold everything I owned. I'm going to get my trailer and my truck, and I'm going to travel all across North America. That was my dream. That's what I was going after. So, and I was retiring early. I retired early. I left my career. And the last few months that I was at the casino, I started talking to this woman. I'd known her for 20 years. And she was going through the same thing as me. She was selling her house, I was selling mine, and we started talking. And I said, well, why don't you give me your number? We'll get together outside sometime. Okay. So I got her phone number. A couple months went by, I didn't call her. I didn't want to get involved with anybody. I was really, really gun shy. And then one Christmas, it was Christmas Day, she called me. Are you ever going to call me? She said. So I said, yeah, I was just kind of a little chicken. I'm not ready, you know. But we started talking. I said, why don't you come over? And so she came over, and we just had a great night. We talked till like 2 in the morning, laughing and joking. And yeah, so that's wife number 3, because 2 years later, we got married. And That's a blended family. She has 2 kids of her own, plus she has 2 children that she fostered, which is 4 kids, and I have 2 children of my own, and another stepdaughter, which is 3, which gives us 7 children altogether. So as a blended family, we're pretty large, and then all those grandchildren that go with it. So yeah, I'm in my 3rd marriage. Call me crazy, but I believe in marriage. Believe it or not, I believe in marriage. People say, why are you getting married again? There's a few reasons. It's to prove to each other our commitment, but it's to prove to our family, our extended family, our grandchildren, that we're committed to each other. Like my wife feels like a grandmother to my grandchildren, and I'm grandpa to her grandchildren. We're blended, we're solid, and it was important to me that we got married, and it was one of the greatest celebrations. It was really good.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're married 3 years now. Yeah.
I see. Wow. Did you ever thought you will lose the hope of finding the right person for a happy marriage? Was that?
I'd given up. I was not looking. I really felt that. We talked about my temper earlier. I've been diagnosed as bipolar. Okay, that was a real awakening for me when I got that diagnosis, and it explained a lot about me. The temper that I talked about, the flare-ups, and I don't like to hurt people. I'm an empath too, which is a terrible combination, because I really don't like hurting people, and that's why I decided I don't want to be in another relationship. And this happened when Helen and I started dating. It really caught me by surprise. I was leaving for Alaska. Okay, I had my trailer. All I had to do was I had a couple more months to finish at work, but I was already living in my trailer in my daughter's backyard, and I was heading for Alaska. And then we started dating, and everything was good, but I was still going to Alaska. My son-in-law was in an accident. He fell off a ladder, broke his leg in 3 places, and it just so happened he was in the middle of a big move. He was moving his whole business, and he needed help. So my trip to Alaska was put on hold. It was. I said, I'll just go in September. You know, I can wait. And I helped them do the move. But Helen and I, we started seeing more of each other, spending more time together. Now, by the time we got him moved and the summer was through and I could leave, I didn't want to leave without her. So there I was. Okay. I came off the road because Helen was still working. And she had a foster son still living with her. Actually, he had come back to live with her. And they were living in this little 1-bedroom basement apartment that they were sharing. And I said, I got to get you guys out of there. So we rented a house. And we moved in together. And there's been no looking back. It's just been an incredible journey. Yeah, I didn't see it coming at all. But I just didn't want to go anywhere without her. The idea of traveling alone didn't appeal to me at all. Okay. But I was not looking for a wife. I see. I was not.
And how do you deal with your fear of hurting someone nowadays? Because, like you mentioned, the bipolarity you were diagnosed with. I mean, how do you manage it? You know,
being aware of it is very helpful, and having a wife that is understanding of it is immensely helpful. We could not be together if she did not let me rant and rave when I have to. Because sometimes, some days, you can't even talk to me. I have an internal angst going on. I'm fighting in myself, and I don't even know why. It's very strange. Being diagnosed and having it explained to me helped me so much, because I've dealt with this my whole life. Could not figure out why. And having a wife that understands that is so helpful. So helpful. And that's why I was able to marry her, because she can take me. She can let me get really angry or snap at her and just water off a duck's back, as we say.
Okay.
Yeah, she just lets it go, and we're fine 5 minutes later.
Okay. She knows it will end at some point, and then.
Oh yeah.
It's also
She knows I have a good heart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to know me, I have a good heart. Once again, I'm my own worst enemy at times.
Mm-hmm.
The bipolar is, but I'm not on any drugs for it.
Mm.
Yeah, I went when I was diagnosed, and he said, the good news is, you don't need any drugs. He says, you're managing. He says, you're not drinking. And that's a big thing. He said to me, when was the last time you went a week without drinking? I said, maybe I was 15. You know, alcohol was a part of my life. He said, that's going to be a big game changer for you. And he told me, he said, you just take it easy, he said, and keep in mind that you are bipolar. So if you're talking to somebody and they're looking at you funny, maybe it's time to come and see me. Okay. You know, because there are drugs that will help control it, but mine is at the point where it's controllable. It's not controlling me, but I have trouble with frustration. Mm-hmm. Frustration, like if I'm trying to get a screw in some way and it doesn't fit, like I can throw this, I'll throw the screwdriver. I'll get mad at a screw. You know, an inanimate object will make me angry. Like, that's really dumb when you think about it. But that is me. You know, frustration does not sit well with me.
And how do you deal with yourself in those situations? Because you know what's happening. And I understand from what you're saying that you know what's happening. Like, how do you get yourself back on track?
You have to walk away. A lot of times I'll walk out that door and I will walk and I will talk myself down because I know what's happening within me. But it feels like it's taking over sometimes it's physical. Like I actually feel it in my body. And yeah, walking helps me a lot. Usually I have to break away from the situation. Just walk away. Mm-hmm. Just walk away. And I do that a lot better now. Get over it. That's my go-to saying. Get over it. Get over it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. The Eagles have a song. It's called Get Over It.
Get over it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. When I speak, I finish my talk with that song. Yeah, the crowd loves it. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, you said earlier, it's really important to understand yourself, to be aware of your challenges, of your what drives you or what hurts you, what are your triggers or whatever. Mm-hmm. And if you know that, then you can work with it, Yeah. And I mean, it's easier said than done, that's also true.
Oh yeah, for sure. It takes work. It takes work and understanding and having an understanding partner because, yeah, she is my rock. Mm-hmm. I can snap at her and come back 2 minutes later. Sorry, I love you. I know. And everything is good. Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Cool. Did you ever have the feeling I don't know, people look different at you now after they read your book, who knew you before, or maybe give you a look which is maybe not so positive because now they know what happened? I mean, has your environment changed after the book?
My environment hasn't changed. Family, they were surprised. There was a lot of surprise from family. But because they know me and they know that I have a good heart, they accept it. Mm-hmm. They accept it. They're very surprised. Did you know that Ray took drugs? That kind of thing, because it wasn't open. I lived a very kind of a secretive life. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so a lot of my friends and family didn't know a lot of those things. And mm-hmm. Yeah, I came clean, and there's still lots that I couldn't tell. My first draft of my book, it was the first couple of chapters, and I let my mother read it. She says, "You can't print this." Mm-hmm. You can't. People will not accept you if you print this. I had to revise it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, but still all true, everything in there. Just some things aren't necessary. And that's what you have to look at when you're writing. You have to, what's important that comes out. I had a message that I wanted to get across in this book. And I wrote this book. The main reason I wrote this book was to help others who were struggling with any of the struggles that I struggled through, which was alcohol, drug addiction, bipolar, losing everything. All those things that I struggled through, and I managed to still keep going. And there was things that I did that helped me that I wanted to share with others. Then the biggest thing was, you're not as old as you think you are. Yeah. And I tried to lay that out with it's about time and thinking of yourself as a baby, starting off as a baby, that step, because that whole starting over process is really tough. Really tough. Like if you ever been to an AA meeting or any of these where people are trying to restructure their life, and like, they're trying to deal with that terrible past that they've had. But what they have to do is they have to deal with the future and move forward and leave that behind. But that's the hard part. That's why starting as a baby is so good, because you are reborn and you're starting with a clean slate. If you allow yourself to, you have to give yourself that clean slate. You have to forgive yourself. That's something we haven't touched on. It's forgiveness.
Okay.
That's a big one.
How do you forgive yourself?
You have to, I think it's the moving forward and bettering yourself allows you to forgive yourself. Like we talked about the damage I did with my relationship with my daughters. It was very hard to, like, when I went back and sat down and we talked to them about my past, my wrongs, and how I felt about them. That was very, very helpful, because when we have children, we tend to not let them know what we're truly like. But when you sit down with them as an adult and you talk to them as an adult and say, this is me, this is the way I was, I'm not that anymore, this is me now. And you are changing your person. That's the only way that you can let go of the past, is become something else. You can't stay the same and still grow. Not if you're trying to make that change. You have to grow and leave the past behind. It's always going to be there, but you have to be a different person. I don't know if that answers the question. But
Actually, it leads me to another question. Like, is there anything inside you which is missing that could take it to the next level?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there is. I think it's drive. I don't have the drive to be a big success, to make a ton of money. I just want to live my life. Basically, you know, I have a good life, and my family is the most important thing to me, and they always come before everything else. Like even right now, I'm planning a trip. It's planned. I'm supposed to leave in 2 days, and I'm canceling it because I'm needed somewhere else. And really, they could survive without me, but I wouldn't feel right up there, because I'd still be thinking of them here. You know, I've always put my family first, and you know, I don't have that drive where I will put things aside and concentrate on myself, on doing my thing. I think for me to be a success, I have to have more drive. That's the only word that I can think of that describes what I'm missing. I don't have that where I'm taking it to the next level. I'm almost there. I'm reaching the point where, you know, I've written this book, and my idea of marketing it was I wanted to go out and speak. I wanted to get on stage and talk to people, motivate people, and change their life. And maybe I'll sell a few books. But for me, that was the way I saw this. Well, I wrote the book, and it was published as COVID was starting. So going out on the road and talking, I could have done what you're doing, podcasts, and I'm just so overwhelmed technically with the computers and everything else to make all that happen. They've just sat there. So I decided that I've got to get this book out there. That's why I went on a trip, and that's how I met you. You know, as I met interesting people that I thought might enjoy my book, I give it away, because That's more important to me. It's more important that this gets out there than it is for me to make money on it. You don't write a book to make money, believe me. I read somewhere there's something like 3,000 books a day are published. That's a lot of competition.
Oh, but
You have to have something. You have to stand out, you know.
But there are never enough books written, you know.
I know. Isn't it amazing? It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always
one of the greatest things I've ever done. It was very gratifying.
How has your life changed after you wrote the book? Has it changed in any?
My life?
Yeah, your life.
I've met some very interesting people. And you know what? When you read the book, I talk about how people treated me differently when I was wearing a suit. I was a professional, you know. I changed. I was working in a casino. When I was a dealer, I was a dealer. And, you know, you get a certain amount of respect as a dealer. You know your game and that type of thing. But when I put a suit on and I was in management and I'm walking across the gaming floor, it was different. People treated me differently. It's not right. I don't, you know, I'm still the same person. But I noticed the same thing with the book. People treat me different as soon as they find out I'm an author. Wow, you wrote a book. You know, and it's very impressive to a lot of people. I didn't write it for that, and I don't get overwhelmed by that. But I've noticed that when they found out I've written a book, it's like I stepped up a notch.
It gives you credibility in some sense.
Exactly. Yeah. It truly does. Yeah.
Did the book, like you writing the book, did it help you also like to deal a little bit with some experiences or with some like it gave you like some reflection, you know what I mean? Like
immensely. Yeah, it's funny you should ask that because I tell everybody they should write a book. There's a book in everyone, and I think they should take the time, even if it comes out as a lousy book that is not written properly just by doing it. There was times when I was writing about my father. He passed away when he was 45. I was 20. And I had my little writing nook. It was at my trailer, parked in the driveway. I'd go and sit in my trailer and write. And whatever I was writing about, I was reliving. And it was sometimes just fabulous experience. I could relive those experiences again because, as you know, in your brain, it's like a file. You open one file and all these other files open up. Well, that's what I experienced writing this book, and it was just a great experience. Brought my dad. It was like I was sitting on the bed holding his hand again. It was amazing, just amazing. Yeah.
So you went through those memories again, like,
and the feelings.
And the feelings as well.
It takes it beyond just a memory. You actually relive it because you delve into it. You take it deeper than just a flashing memory. You actually delve right into it because you want to write about it. So you break it apart and you want to write about that experience in detail. So those details come back to you. Now me, I'm a very emotional person, so all those emotions come right back. Oh yeah.
Was there a point when it was maybe too overwhelming?
I don't think so. No, I don't. It was very emotional. Like I can remember a couple when I was talking about my wives and my dad, because I love them all. Like I still love my wives. You don't marry someone you don't love. You know, even if you can't live with them anymore, you still love them. That doesn't go away. So when you talk about and you go through those times, you get emotional. Oh yeah. And talking about my dad and my mom just passed away. Those things they hit me hard. There's certain songs I can't sing right to the end. I'll start crying because I'm that kind of guy. You know, my kids have contests. Which card is going to make me cry the most?
Really? Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm an emotional guy. It's one of the crosses that I have to bear.
No, it's part of your personality.
It is.
And why trying to hold something down, which is part of us,
you
know?
You
especially if you don't hurt anyone with it, you know. It's just you as a person, and
that's right.
It makes you, you know.
Yeah. And like even talking about it, not even talking about anything specific, I could feel the emotion coming in just because it's just raw emotion. Yeah, it's strange.
Was there ever a moment in the process when you wrote the book that you thought about quitting?
Quitting writing the book?
Quitting writing the book.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Because what am I going to write about now? I don't have anything else to write about. And then it would come, writer's block, they call it, right? And I don't know if I ever thought about quitting. No, Helen wouldn't let me quit. Anyways. She pushed me into writing the book.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Because I had this idea for 20 years. I never wrote it. And I always talked about it. I even talked to other people that were writers and say, well, why don't we get together? Maybe you can write my book for me. I never thought of myself as really being capable of writing the book. And Helen wouldn't let me go. And we started looking for rental houses. She goes, look, you can put your computer in there and you can write your book there. And I didn't even have the computer yet. I hadn't even started an outline. And every place we went, look, you can set up your writing nook here. Like, she was not going to let it go. And when we did rent the house, it was just a couple months later, I went out, I said, well, I have to get a good laptop, and went and got my Apple laptop finally, and the money well spent. And I started doing research on writing a book. What do I have to do? And I started looking at the type of book I wanted to write. And there's companies that publish those types of books. And I was doing free webinars and that type of thing. And there was one webinar that was on there, and he said, get a book writing coach. I'd never even heard the term before. I'd heard of ghostwriter, that type of thing, but I never heard of a book writing coach. And so I looked it up on the computer, and there they are. They're all listed on book writing coach. So I called around, interviewed a couple, and I hired one. And it was great. Yeah, she helped me immensely. Okay. Yeah, because she's a professional. She knew how the outline should go. She knows what people like. And she helped me develop my outline. And from there, it was just a matter of just going through my life, basically. And I make notes, and I write about the life and the lessons that I wanted to pass on. And then she took my words and made it into something I think that reads pretty good. So, yeah, but I couldn't have done it without her. Okay. Or without Helen. I'm not one for finishing jobs. I'm great for starting, but I fizzle out. I get off track, as you probably see as I'm talking, because I'll be talking about one thing and I just go off somewhere else, and that's me, chasing butterflies. Yeah. Oh, there goes another one.
but again, it's a team effort. No? Once again in life, you need to ask for help or for support.
Absolutely.
To get things done. I mean,
you can't get through life alone.
Yeah, you can always try to do it all by yourself, but it might take you longer, or you will never get there where you want to be.
Yeah.
And having the courage and also the freedom to ask for help or for people to support you, and be it a fan or be it someone who structures or someone who closes or fills a gap of skill you don't have.
Yeah.
You have to
absolutely. You should never be afraid to ask for help. Ever. Yeah.
I see. What are you the most grateful for right now?
Well, it's really most grateful is my family. You've heard me talk about my family. They're everything to me. That's my legacy. I'm proud of them. They're all a success. They're growing. Their children are growing, and they're prospering. I'm just so grateful for my family. I look at them and I know that I will live on long after I'm gone. That's how I look at it. Okay. And I'm very grateful for my family. They're everything to me. There's lots that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my wife, which is my family, but it's my family, I'd say, I'm most grateful for. Yeah.
What has been the best investment you have ever done in yourself?
Best investment in myself. Wow. Well, there's a lot that I've done for myself, but to pick the best, writing this book was huge. It's huge. It's something that has always been there that I wanted to get out. Is that the best investment in myself? I think it's up there. It truly is. It was a huge step for me. And I hope that it will grow from here. I hope that's not my last book. I've got another one that I would like to right?
Okay.
But I think I have to do things with this first. I have to get this marketed properly and get out on the road. And we'll see down the road, but that was a good investment in my life. An investment in my dealer's course. I had no money. I had nothing. I paid in installments for my dealer's course. It was $1,500. And that opened up a whole new career that was the best job I ever had. I loved every day. I had fun. It was a fun job. And that was a good investment in myself. Yeah. Quitting drinking, quitting smoking, great investment in myself. So you see, I can't pick one. I can never pick favorites. I'm bad at that.
But it's better to have many instead of only having one, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Who was the best teacher in your life?
My mother.
What did she taught you?
She taught me a lot. She gave me my words of wisdom. She taught me philosophy. She opened up the world of reading to me. She introduced me to books when I was in my 20s. I didn't read at all. And we would share our stories about books and philosophies. And I learned a lot about life from her. And I will always be grateful. We shared a lot, my mother and I. And a lot of my philosophies I garnered from her. And she taught me a lot.
Is there one or two philosophies you want to share which are like maybe most important?
Well, I shared a couple of them already, which was this too shall pass. And what's another philosophy that she had shared with me? Now I'm going to draw a blank because I'm trying to think so hard. But let me think. What else did she teach me? Well, relationships. She taught me a lot about relationships. She shared a lot about the relationship between my dad and her, and how it was the ups and downs of those relationships, which you don't see as a child. You don't see those. But she taught me what it's like to be in a good relationship and how to hold on even when it's bad. And you'd never know that from my track record. But I think that had a lot to do with why I always believed in marriage, why I believed that life can be good with the right person. It's not always perfect, but it makes your life better. She taught me about that. She taught me about getting on with your life. Now, you want to talk about making changes? She was 40 years old when my father passed away. She had never worked. She only worked part-time. The odd time she would be an operator at Bell Telephone. She made a resume that spoke of all the skills that she had as a housewife. She went out and she got a job as a lab technician in Ontario paper. She didn't even have a high school education, and she did that. And that, to me, I always admired her for that. She totally changed her life. That was another, just the same as me. She had her big life change at 40. And she rose above. It was very, very difficult for her. But she did it. And yet I always admired her for that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Is there any questions? Any question? You would like to be asked, but no one has been asking it yet?
Jeez. That's a really tough question because I haven't been interviewed a lot, so there hasn't been a lot of people that are not asking me questions. I don't know. I guess, if you could change anything in your life, what would you change? To be honest, I don't know that I'd change anything in there, because life is made up of good and bad, and everything that I've done in my life has brought me to this point. Even the bad things. You and I spoke about earlier that me quitting General Motors, okay? People thought I was crazy. Truth is, I was. Because if I had stayed there, I would have been able to retire at a very young age. But that's just wasn't in the cards for me. I had a dream. I wanted to have my own business, and I quit GM to start my own business. It didn't work out, But does that mean that was a wrong choice at that time? I don't think so. If you ask my mother, yes, it was. Some things my mother and I didn't agree on, and that was one of them for sure. But I've made some crazy decisions in my life. But I wouldn't change them. Okay. You know, that's the way it's supposed to be. You know, I believe in the universe. I'm not a religious person, but I do believe that we're all connected somehow. Somehow there's something going on in this universe. And I believe that all things happen for a reason. And everything that's happened has brought me to this point, and I'm happy. So why would I want to change anything? So, I don't know. I guess maybe that's a question that's never been asked, but I didn't really answer it either because I wouldn't change anything.
Okay, see. At the end of every podcast, every one of my podcast guests gets the 3 questions of wisdom. And of course you get them as well. The first question would be, if you could choose a superhero power, what would it be?
I think I'd like to fly.
Mm-hmm. Why flying?
Well, flying, I think, is the biggest freedom that you can feel. You can swim. I love the feeling of swimming in the water and floating and being free that way. I loved skiing downhill. I think that was the closest thing to flying for me. Mm-hmm. It was downhill skiing. You just had that total freedom, and I think flying is just that next level. I watch birds soaring. I love raptors, big birds of prey, and watching them soar without even flapping their wing. I think I would love it. Even though I have a fear of heights, I think if I was flying, I'd get over that.
Okay.
Well, you know, that's unless there was a superhero that has a lot of patience. Because if I could change anything about me, that would be, I wish I had more patience.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's not a superhero thing. Could it be?
Yeah,
Superman,
be.
He's
Yeah.
got a lot of patience, I think.
Yeah. You can decide, you know, like you can make it. Number 2, what are you most proud of?
Once again, I'd have to say my family. Yeah. I think that's one thing that I've done right in my life. Of course, I'm proud of writing the book, but that doesn't trump my family. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so proud that we're all surviving, and yeah, I'm proud of my family. I brag about them all the time. I have 12 grandchildren, another one on the way, and we're still surviving. We're keeping each other going, and yeah.
Okay, see. Number 3. Well, at some point life has to end, or will end, you know, even the first life, second life, third life, you name
That's
it.
Right.
I just want to take you on a little journey, thinking about a little journey. And the journey goes like you are lying on your deathbed. Mm-hmm. You know, it's going to be the last days, last moments in your life, and you're lying there really happy. You look back on your life. You had great experiences. You managed to go for your dreams, go for your goals, and you're happy with what you have, what you had in your life, what you reached, and what you experienced. And all your loved ones are around your deathbed. They're all staying around you, your family, friends, colleagues, right. You name it, whoever you want to be there. And they ask you, what are your 3 life lessons you learned in your whole life? What would you give them? What would you tell them? What are the most important lessons you had in your life?
Don't sweat the little things. Okay?
What do you mean with that?
What do I mean about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have a problem. Let's think of something. You're in an argument, okay? And you had a fight with your spouse. you have to decide if you're going to hold on to that or if you're going to let it go. How important is that? Okay, don't make small things become big things. Okay, whether it's dealing with your children or with your spouse or with your friends. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Have you heard that saying before? So that's the same thing. Don't sweat the little things. Don't let those small things become big things. Leave them small. Choose your battles. That's one of the wisdoms. I have to come up with three.
Mm-hmm. Number two.
Number two. Number two. Well, I have to say get over it, but that ties in with don't sweat the little things. But no, get over it is a good one, because there are things that are going to eat at you that you cannot let go of. And you have to make yourself let go. And that's when you have to self-talk and get over it and move on. Don't sit there and dwell on your problems. Get over it. Fight the problem. Find out why the problem is there and fix it. But don't just sit there and say, oh, poor me, okay? You don't tell other people get over it, because that will offend them. This is self-talk. Get over it. And to me, it's important. You got to be able to let things go. Mm-hmm. So, the third one is don't put too much importance on things. Mm-hmm. Things really, they're only here for a short time. You're only here for a short time. And the things that are important to you are the people that are around you right now. That motorcycle that's sitting in your driveway, or that new boat, or that new car, when you're lying on your deathbed, they mean absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. You work your whole life to get all these things, and they really add up to not much. Mm-hmm. So don't put too much importance on financial things and physical things. Concentrate on your loved ones, mm-hmm. your friends, your family. Yeah, they're the important things in your life. Mm-hmm. Put them first. Then go after the new car.
I see. Okay, cool. We spoke about your book, It's About Time. Where can people get more information about you? Where can they get in touch with you? Do you have any webpage, any social?
I have a website,
accounts?
rayfrigault.com. That's Frigault, pronounced Frigault, like free to go. And that's would be my website. The name of the book is It's About Time. Rediscover Your Youth. Take the Fear Out of Change. If you go on Amazon, you'll be able to find it. Anywhere online, you'll find it. It's still trying to get it into bookstores. But definitely you can order it online from anywhere in the world. So, and we don't have an audio copy yet, but we're working on that. Hopefully that'll happen this year. And hopefully I'll have it published in different languages down the road. Maybe you'll help me to translate it into German.
We do the German part, of course.
There you go.
Okay, cool. Well, Ray, let me take the time to acknowledge you for a second. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you very much for giving me the book, like a couple of weeks ago before we met, then passing me a copy. I really enjoyed reading it. I really took a lot out of it, and that's the reason why we're sitting here and having this great conversation.
That's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that.
It really made something with me, like to think about things and also like to question some stuff, like
I can tell. I can tell because you remember a lot about the book, and you say things back to me that I can tell that you enjoyed it and you took something from it.
Yeah. So
I like that.
Thank you for, doing the work and writing that piece of art, which, I believe is work and takes effort. So thank you that you did that. Thank you for sharing your story. Sharing the ups and the downs as well. I mean, you say it in the book as well, often we learn more from the downsides of life and from the challenges and the things we have
stronger.
The struggle which we have to overcome, and then that you share it like openly, which is, I think takes courage, and that you share it with the idea of lifting other people up, to give some ideas to, go over it, to pass on your wisdom, to give advice, to motivate other people to take advantage of their own powers and energies and take their life in their hands. And I think that's what we need in the world, like to lift other people up, to be, the ones who help each other and help out others, and maybe other people don't do the same mistakes or can learn something out of it, at least.
That's the hope. Yeah.
So thank you very much for sharing that and putting the work in. And
my pleasure.
I hope it will continue. I'm looking forward for your other books, which are coming up, for the audio and everything. And thanks again for taking the time.
It's been my pleasure. Really enjoyed it. There we go, buddy.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you very much for listening. I personally have learned a lot and received new impulses. I hope you feel the same way. If you want to learn more about Ray and his book, check out the show notes in the description and follow the links. To make sure you never miss another episode, don't forget to like and subscribe the podcast and also share it with a friend. Let me know what you enjoyed in this episode and send me a feedback so we can help and serve you moving forward. See you next time and keep on creating your life the way you want it.